Republican Rome, and were very much concerned about what happened when it developed into a vicious empire. So yeah, I mean, there are parallels, and not that they aren't exact, but with empire comes corruption, comes destruction, comes economic destruction, comes poverty, and comes the fall. So it happened to the British, it happened to the Romans, it happened to the Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians. I mean, go down the list of all the various empires. And they typically go out, as Ron Paul always points out, for economic reasons. Not so much that they lose militarily. First they lose economically, then they lose militarily. So here we have the U.S., which, despite all the wars it wages, is not very good at them. It has like a gigantic World War II style military. They can't handle guys with AK-47s in Afghanistan who've got, no drones, no planes, no tanks, none of the equipment, none of the electronic surveillance equipment and so forth, and yet they can't beat them. So this is, I think, a sign of things to come. Romney and Obama, I think, are going to give us more wars. Probably, I think Romney worse than Obama in the foreign policy area, hard as that is to believe, and of course Paul Ryan too. So yeah, are we headed down? And when Rome fell, there was a very long period of decivilization. Took a long time to build back up. It also happened when trade collapsed in the whole Mediterranean world because of the fights between the Muslims and the Christians. So things go on for a very long time. It took a long time to rebuild. We have to hope that we're not going to end up in that sort of situation. But already, of course, we're poorer. Really, if you look at things with an unjaundiced eye and pay no attention to government propaganda, the average American family is no better off today than they were in the early 1970s, in real terms. And that was when Nixon took us off the remnants of the gold standard and gave us the full fiat money, paper money, baloney money system that we are suffering under, the whole world suffers under today, and is probably going to bring us all down today or in the near future.
Lou Rockwell, stay there. I want to come back and look at the world financial crisis, and banks are told, get ready for collapse, government can't help you, prepare yourselves. Why we see all this scurrying around, as you point out, our so-called military couldn't even hold Baghdad. How are they going to hold the United States, no matter how many billions of rounds of ammunition the bureaucrats have, with big sis up there waddling around? Is our guest. The voice you're hearing is that of, well, me, Alex Jones. And he's with us for the rest of the hour. Lou, I want to cover the waterfront with you and pick your brain. And I want to get into the Republican-Democratic field this year, Ron Paul, where all that's going. Paul Ryan, obviously Romney picked the wrong Paul, but I don't blame him for not picking Rand, because Rand's a lot better than Paul Ryan, so we know why that happened. But getting back to the issue of the world economy right now, from the perspective of an economist who heads up the Von Mises Institute, where are things going? And how can the very people that got us into this crisis get us out of it when their answer is give them more power and more corporate welfare?
Alex, I should mention, I'm not an economist, although I think about economics and write about it and read about it. But I think and your listeners know the serious trouble. They keep claiming they're patching up the euro in the Eurozone. It's not actually happening. So maybe they're going to just continue. Maybe if the Germans let them, and I fear the Germans are going to let them, they're going to just print unlimited number of euros to buy the useless bonds of the countries that have issued them to the big banks. Because, of course, as with all economic troubles these days, the big banks are in back of what's happening in Europe. Because they're not bailing out Greece, they're not bailing out Italy or Spain. They're bailing out the big banks that hold the bonds of these countries. And the so-called technocratic prime ministers that have been installed in Italy and Greece and probably in other countries too, and at the European Central Bank, these people typically come from Goldman Sachs. So these are the sorts of people who are in back of this. They want the people of Europe to be further impoverished so the banks can live it up. Same thing happens in our own country, of course. We live also in a bankocracy. So they can keep printing up. Fed prints up all this, prints up trillions. But this does have an effect when, it's made us all poorer already. How much poorer are we going to be? How much of a police state and a military state and a military junta, whatever the government is in Washington, I'm not exactly sure of what it is. Certainly is not anything like was talked about by Thomas Jefferson.
Sure, and Lou, let me just stop you to be specific. I knew that you're not technically an economist, but you head up a group that's made up of a bunch of economists. I mean, you wouldn't call Ron Paul an economist, but he writes books about it and studies it. He's a lay economist. It's like I could go out and be a preacher. People call me the preacher, but I didn't go to seminary to be a preacher, though I did sit through a lot of Sunday school. My point is you head up a group that is a consortium of economists, correct?
Yes, of course, that's right.
Okay, so I mean, my point is I see you as a real economist. I mean, it's like I don't have a degree in shooting, but with a good rifle, I can shoot bullseye at 500 yards pretty easy. So wow. I'm not officially a sharpshooter, but I am. But I mean, just getting back to that, you are heavily into economics, and you consult with a bunch of economists. So I wanted your pulse on that.
Well, there's trouble. I mean, we're not the pulse is a little bit harder to feel these days because of what the government is doing. We have, in the U.S. government, and the U.S. government has got its clones in Britain and in Europe and so many other countries in the rest of the world. The U.S. government is the biggest, richest, most powerful government ever to exist in the history of humankind. I mean, there's never been anything like this before, so we are really in new territory, and new territory of disaster, I'm afraid. I noticed that Jim Rogers the other day thought that there was a collapse coming after the November elections because of all the money printing that's going on, both in Europe and in Asia and in the United States, of course, too. So I don't know. So I don't know what the timing is, but they are undermining. They're like a bunch of termites. They're eating out the foundation of the house. When the house is going to collapse, I don't know. But if the termites aren't stopped, we can be sure the house is going to collapse. So,
and then when the collapse does start to happen, as it's already started, they pose as saviors. So how do you stop them from turning us into a pure third world despotic system from the implosion that they've created? Well,
that's a great question. I think the first thing we have to do is educate ourselves. We all have to know some economics. I would recommend something like Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson, which was published in the late 1940s, but it's just as fresh today as it was then. And if you learn some economics, it enables you to see through the government lies. You can see through the smokescreen that they try to generate to cover their crimes. So you can understand. So everybody needs to understand some economics first of all. Then we need to resist. We need to withdraw our consent. We need to talk about what's going on. We need to listen to shows like yours. We need to read all the right books and mentally resist. Actually, mentally resisting is, I would say, by the way, don't vote is one thing you can do. They're very anxious that we vote. They want that mandate from us. They don't care who you vote for. Ultimately, of course, there are interest groups.
Tell you what, stay there. Explain that. And let's get into this current election on the quick break. We'll be right back.
We're on the march. The empire's on the.
We are here defending freedom and basic liberty, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. Back Sundays 4 to 6, and don't forget InfoWars Nightly News. By the way, we promote what we use and believe in, and I have found the best vitamin and mineral supplement preparation company out there. They've been around for more than 15 years, and it's all available discounted at InfoWarsTeam.com. You can go to InfoWars.com and see a new information video we put out showing the side-by-side comparisons of Aaron Dykes, myself, and others, and the incredible weight loss and health benefits of the products at InfoWarsTeam.com. Deficiency of vitamins and minerals causes obesity because it makes you want to then eat more and more because you're eating empty calories. And lo and behold, government won't tell anybody this. And government-controlled big medicine doesn't want to tell you this because, well, it's a rigged system. So check out that new video up at InfoWars.com right now. Very powerful video. And continuing, there's a lot of other news up there on the site. FAA documents how drones over U.S. pose huge security risk. This has now been leaked. A group did FOIA request and got some of it, but more of it's come out how dangerous it is. I want to get into the election and the two-party system and the rest of this, Lou, and where you see things going and other issues I know you're hot to talk about. But first off, what is this obsession with supersonic cruise missiles? I guess it's about military domination. But this 1.4 billion rounds of ammo against us, the FAA saying, yeah, 30,000 drones, and they're starting to arm them. Is this all part of government wanting big, giant marble buildings to make us feel small, and drones and letting us know we're being watched, and face scanning cameras and TSA abusing us? What is all that about? Just the simple act of domination? Because they seem to think it's scaring people. I don't see that happening. I see it upsetting people, and that's why they're getting politically involved, exposing the system. That's why they're out buying guns at record numbers. What would you say the mood of the country is right now, and why is government obsessed with all these armaments?
Well, I think it's true that people are getting upset. They ought to be upset. Even Hitler and Stalin didn't be able to feel up people's children and wives and so forth in the airport. I mean, this is, and most people just accept this, or at least they go along with it. Maybe they don't see any other way out. But I think there is increasing resistance. People are angry. They should be angry. And as you say, of course, people are buying every time there's a one of these incidents, like in the Batman shooting or whatever. There's vast increases in gun sales. People want to be armed. They want to have a gun in their home, and of course they should. They should be armed. It's a great thing to have law-abiding, good people armed. And as we know, it cuts down crime rates, private crime. Doesn't much affect government crime, of course, but it does cut down private crime, which is a wonderful benefit. But yeah, the government wants us all to. You only have to go to. I don't recommend going to Washington, but if you do go to Washington D.C., take a look at the buildings. They absolutely are all built to make you feel small and make you impressed and in awe of the power and glory of the government. So all this stuff has to, because it also has to do with fearing the people, but they want to make us scared of them. They want to make us scared of phony foreign enemies, and they want to make us obey. They want us to be rubbed, to be pushed down, to make all the peons realize that, or they think they and hope will bow down to the government, love the government, worship the government, fear the government, give it all our money, give it our children for its wars and so forth. Well,
sure. There's so many progressives who are well-meaning people, but they've never really run a business. Talking to them, they always come out of academia, come out of government. They're disconnected from the real world and how stuff really works. And they always have these grand utopian views, but all they ever deliver is hell on earth. History shows that, and we repeat it over and over again. Let me get into this subject and then into election 2012 and the point you're chomping at the bit to cover, Paul Ryan and the rest of it. And that's false flag staged events. I know everything isn't staged, but a lot of things have been staged, like Gulf of Tonkin, Operation Ajax, Gladio, Northwoods, the list goes on, or at least in many cases they use crises. They don't want those to go to waste, as the White House Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel, said, former Chief of Staff, now Mayor of Chicago. But now we see the spectacle of al-Qaeda flags over Libya, al-Qaeda flags over rebel-held areas of Syria. We see the CFR fellow writing for them last week saying, we need al-Qaeda. That's a quote. They're heroes. They're doing a great job. So the TSA needs to abuse my family and take them into a private rape room if I want to fly. But al-Qaeda is good in Libya and Syria, and NATO's working with the criminals out of Saudi Arabia. And then on top of that, I had Larry Pratt on a few weeks ago, and he said, look, if the Obama criminals would stage Fast and Furious, that's killed thousands, why wouldn't they stage the Batman shooting when you've got reports of multiple gunmen, multiple gas masks, the cover-ups, the government psychiatrist? I mean, we know they do stuff like this. So what do you say about false flag terror and our so-called government publicly running al-Qaeda?
Well, as you know, all governments, especially police states, employ agents provocateurs. They seek to, they cause crimes, they cause terrorist incidents in order to get the public all hepped up, and also maybe to expose people that they fear themselves. Who knows about that? But their main thing is to control their own public, their own cash cows, their own taxpayers. That's the people they are really concerned about controlling. So yeah, they of course they run false flags. We can't sometimes know whether things are false flags or not. Obviously, we can't tell what's coming. But is this government or any big government capable of false flag operations? Of course. There's, if they don't do something evil, it's either because they haven't thought about it,